From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Keeping a legacy alive.
Farmers are resilient. We feed the world, we clothe the world. I love being a farmer here.
Meet a farmer who's continuing to work the land while sowing a relationship with his customers. What were the keys to Republicans taking back control of the White House?
I think what we learned was that this is a cost of living election.
The important role rural America played as names start to fly about who will lead USDA.
He's just too controversial.
See who could soon be leading the nation's farmers and ranchers right now on AgDay.
AgDay is brought to you by Pioneer.
Ben's bins, please hold.
Yeah, Ben's has been busy all day.
Seems like no one can keep up with this new Z series. What did you all put in these seeds?
Science.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. The country now has a new president-elect, but for farmers and ranchers, attention now turns to who will be the next leader of USDA. Many pundits already making predictions. AgDay's Michelle Rook joins me. And Michelle, some familiar names are on the short list.
Yeah, that's right, Clinton. The possible candidates to become the next Secretary of Ag include individuals that served in Trump's first administration, as well as many other notable names in D.C. and the agricultural industry. Washington insiders tell AgDay whoever is selected for this cabinet post, the agenda for USDA will shift back to more of a focus on production agriculture versus the current administration. The Agriculture Secretary shapes everything in USDA, from farm subsidies and trade to rural economic development and food and nutrition programs. Leading contenders in the past have come from the Midwest or the South, and this time around is no exception.
Well, you hear Ted McKinney, the head of NASDA, who was Undersecretary of Trade before that, been around Washington for a good number of years. You hear Kip Tom, farmer from Indiana, former ambassador of the World Food Program. You hear Sid Miller, the Commissioner of Ag in Texas. You hear Cindy Hyde-Smith, Senator from Mississippi. And then there will be others for sure.
Yeah, Kip Tom, Sid Miller, which a lot of people in production agriculture would get nervous about, but very much a populist. You've got Ray Starling from North Carolina, who to me would be a real good one. I don't like this parlor game because usually the ones you list, they're not picked. Okay.
Others include Kentucky Congressman Thomas Massey, American Farm Bureau President Zippy Duvall, former House Ag Chair Mike Conaway, and former Lieutenant Governor of California, Abel Maldonado. Both agree that cabinet appointments will be made and approved quickly with a Republican majority in the Senate, with one exception that has also been mentioned for Ag Secretary.
RFK Jr. will not get approved by the incoming U.S. Senate. He's just too controversial.
Whoever Trump selects will replace Tom Vilsack, who is the longest-serving Ag Secretary in history. I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay.
All right, thanks, Michelle. Former U.S. Ambassador to the UN Agencies for Food and Agriculture, Indiana farmer Kip Tom says he knows there will be plenty of speculation about cabinet positions in the coming weeks. He did not tell me he was or wasn't in the running, rather says he's willing to serve in any capacity if asked. Now, I also asked Ambassador Tom about the impact to agricultural trade under a second Trump administration. As an Indiana farmer, Tom admits it is a serious consideration for the industry. And he said during the last Trump administration, the president worked on nearly 50 trade deals around the world, including the Phase 1 deal with China. However, Tom points to the trade deficit forecast for 2024 as USDA's Economic Research Service estimates there will be a record $32 billion trade deficit this fiscal year. So he does expect trade to get renewed attention under President Trump.
Trump understands he loves to make deals. He loves to go out and make a good deal, and he knows that we need to sell our excess. And he just wants to make sure that we got something fair going on. I mean, hey, when we're spending $500 billion in China and they're only spending $350 billion with us, we need to level that out a little bit. And maybe it means more agriculture trade going into China to balance that trade out. So no, I'm very optimistic trade with Trump. I have no doubts that we'll get things put together. He knows farmers don't like to get their money from the government. They like to get it from the market.
Besides securing more than the 270 electoral votes needed to clinch the presidency, President Trump also won the popular vote, something he failed to do in 2016. Now, David Wasserman is an election analyst for the Cook Political Report with Amy Walter. He shared his insights with Farm Journal's Tyne Morgan. He says there were several crucial factors that determined the election outcome.
Well, I think what we learned was that this is a cost of living election. And it's really hard for the incumbent party, no matter whether you're running someone who's 82 or 59, to win another term in the White House if people are paying 20% more for groceries than they were 4 years ago, if they're having a harder time obtaining a car or a home loan, even if interest rates were coming down in the fall. And there's no doubt that Kamala Harris had a successful launch and debate in the wake of Biden's withdrawal, and yet she was unable to answer the basic question of how she would govern the country differently from Biden. And in the end, that probably sealed the fate of this election.
Wasserman highlighted the importance of rural America in securing Mr. Trump's victory. Heavy snow and heavy rain are in the forecast for the plains and some mountain areas. Meteorologist Jack Van Meter joins us with an update.
We actually are going to be talking about snow, especially in the four corner states. Take a look at this big low pressure system really centered around New Mexico, and on the northeast side we are going to be seeing that cooler air, especially where those higher elevations are in the southern Rocky Mountains. It actually will be bringing snow to parts of eastern Colorado there. There's that freezing line in pink and a lot of rain out in front of it as a big cold front does stretch out in front of this system, giving rain and beneficial rain all the way through the Great Lakes states and actually all the way to the East Coast. Some well-needed moisture moving through there. While many are wrapping up harvest, for others it still rolls on. Jacob in Fort Morgan, Colorado, doing some corn harvesting ahead of the snow arriving this week. Looked like a picture-perfect day to get the combine rolling. More on that forecast in just a second.
Fierce winds threaten to cause wildfires in California to grow as Cheryl Hubbard reports the fires exploded in size in just one day.
Forecasters say powerful winds and dry conditions are creating a, quote, life-threatening situation.
This fire is moving dangerously fast.
The Ventura County Sheriff's Office made 14,000 contacts Wednesday in an effort to get residents to flee.
You can find yourself quickly trapped, so we encourage you, when you get the notification, please leave.
While officials are warning residents, don't be a hero, one father-son team ignored that warning.
We're burning.
Dude, right, look at you. Your shirt is singed.
All three of these houses would be gone if we weren't here.
But fierce winds are making the job of firefighters more difficult, with wind gusts of 40 to 50 miles per hour expected to cross the area early Thursday.
It's so windy, you can't keep your hat on, and it's blowing the fire like crazy.
Red flag warnings, which warned residents of dangerous fire weather conditions, were in place for an estimated 25 million people, including the Los Angeles area Thursday. Southern California's main electric provider cut off power intentionally overnight to about 70,000 customers as a precaution.
The reality is that with everybody running their generators around here, there's far more risk of a fire starting from the generators than there is from PG&E's power lines.
In Ventura County, the mountain fire burned through a football field worth of land every 4 seconds Wednesday.
Every helicopter, every fixed-wing aircraft, everything we've been able to get a hold of is here fighting this fire.
I'm Cheryl Hubbard reporting for AgDay.
Soybeans and soybean oil trading in the green on Thursday. We'll talk markets coming up next. And later, we're off to North Carolina to meet a young farmer following in his family's foundations and working to build a brighter future in the country. Another flash sale of corn to unknown destinations midweek, but it wasn't enough to keep corn prices higher for another day. AgDay's Michelle Rook has more on how we could end things this week in markets now.
Grains closing mixed on Thursday. Chip Nellinger is back with analysis. And Chip, a big rally in the soybeans on Thursday, up about 23 cents in the January. What prompted that, especially after what we've been talking about with the tariff concerns? Was it soybean oil or what led it?
The easy answer to your question is soy oil leading us higher. But I think post-election, you were maybe leaning everyone a little bit on the short side. After the late night, early morning Wednesday, you had beans down about 20, but they never really just pulled the rug out from under it. And so I think you're seeing some short covering. The soy oil demand and the surge in soy oil prices probably leading the bean market higher. And you just probably had the boat a little loaded too far to the short side, and you're getting them run out ahead of the WASDE report.
Well, corn certainly tried to follow soybeans, and we had such strong weekly exports, about, I think, 109 million bushels. But corn wasn't really able to do much. Why?
So I think a couple things there, maybe some spread, corn bean spreading, where you sold the corn, bought the beans to get that spread back in line. Also, the rally in corn was kind of coinciding with some really pushes in basis in some areas of the country, and I think it uncovered some farmers selling on the corn to kind of get us, pushing a little bit lower. And corn was caught in the middle with the surging beans, but wheat couldn't get anything going yesterday, and it was on the lower side. So I think corn was kind of stuck in the middle.
So the Fed did lower interest rates 0.25%. Are they done for the year?
I would say they're done for the year. I'm kind of surprised that they did lower. I think they almost had to based on the previous 0.5% cut. The market itself, though, the interest rate market, the bond and treasury note market, is telling you that it's really reluctant to go lower. So something's got to give there between the bond market itself, which oftentimes is right, more times than it's not, and the Federal Reserve, who's lowering interest rates. So that could create some additional volatility going into the new year based on the economy and what the Federal Reserve does. I think that the short answer is the Fed's done for the year with this decrease in rates.
Thanks so much, Chip Nellinger, Blue Reef Agri-Marketing. We'll have more AgDay coming up.
Here's a look at our new drought monitor, and actually good news. A lot of folks are finally seeing some relief across much of the country. One of the bigger ones is actually going to be down in Missouri, where levels of severe drought have been replaced with that extreme drought. So again, that is good news there. So we are starting to see a lot of rainfall and actually help to lessen those levels of drought. Still very dry on the East Coast. They're actually starting to see some levels of moderate drought creep into South Carolina. Again, moving out west, though, we are still seeing that severe and extreme drought around the Dakotas. And again, moving out east too. Still very, very dry across the country. Good news, though, a lot of the middle part of the country, we're talking the central and southern plains all the way out to the south, and actually parts of the Great Lakes states going to be seeing a lot of rain. And it's all helps to that low pressure system that is moving through, that is giving Colorado a lot of snow right now. Actually, that first big snow of the year. We can see that right now, Oklahoma really seeing a lot of rain. Good news there. And as we can see, that system is just going to track rain again well to the east. We're seeing levels in Kentucky and also Tennessee too, seeing a nice shot of moisture. So that's that one system, and we have a new system moving off the coast of Seattle there. There's going to be our next widespread country maker in our country, of course. So good news there. Here's our temperature outlook again for the middle of the month there, and as we can see, above average, especially for the eastern part of the country. That's just going to be because we're going to be seeing another large ridge set up and really block out a lot of chances for those lower and cooler temperatures to be moving through. Good news there. Here's our precipitation outlook, and as we can see, very, very above normal for much of the country. Lakeview, Iowa, 58 degrees, low of 41 degrees. Eminence, Kentucky, mostly sunny conditions, high of 65 degrees and low of 42 degrees. And lastly, Gary, Colorado, going to be dealing with some snow at 36 degrees.
New precision ag equipment is on the way. We'll look at some of the latest rollouts next. And later, we're off to North Carolina to meet a farmer working hard to share his profession with consumers and other future producers in the country. What do you do when you have a bunch of different equipment, but you want to upgrade it with the latest technology? Well, Farm Journal's Matthew Grassi recently looked into Ag Leader's latest products. That includes its recently released yield monitor displays, the InCommand Go 16 and InCommand Go 10. Company leaders say both include several things that improve visibility and connectivity. They say they understand it's a challenge for a farmer to manage multiple displays in the cab at once, and they know farmers want one display that does everything, and they hope their latest technology does just that. Now, Grassi reports the company is still based out of Ames, Iowa, and is still family owned. To learn more, you can check out his story over at agweb.com. And look for ag drones and robots to continue to take on bigger roles on the farm. A new study from Straits Research says right now the global ag drone and robots market size is valued at just under $17 billion, but it says it is projecting it to reach over $20 billion next year and more than $102 billion by the year 2033, up a whopping 22%. The report says milking robots will dominate the global market and will grow almost 22%. And for drones, the rotary wing drones own the highest market share right now and are also predicted to grow more than 21%. That new technology continues to find its way to the farm. Up next, we'll meet a fourth-generation farmer in North Carolina working hard to make his own mark on the future in the country. Farmers have to wear a lot of hats, and one North Carolina producer does just that. And one of the most important roles he plays involves cultivating a relationship between the consumer and his farm, as North Carolina Farm Bureau shows us.
This farm has been in our family for over 100 years, passed down for over 4 generations. So the same land that we're sitting on was the same land that my grandfather and my great-grandfather farmed on. Back then, they started with fruits and vegetables, then livestock. Then my dad got into commodities, and tobacco was his cash crop. I'm now at 165 acres here, and I lease over 300 acres. We primarily grow produce, wheat, field corn, soybeans, sesame, and industrial hemp. Being a good steward of the land is pretty much soil-based. It's what creates everything that we grow. If you don't identify the soil and what it needs, you won't have a good crop. And in order for us to make a good crop, we gotta pay attention to what our soil does. So planting cover crops, no-tilling, and focusing on conservation is primarily our primary focus on the farm during my generation. I'm a very input-sensitive producer, especially when we have high inflation. The price of our crops continuing to be the same as it was 20 years ago while the inputs are continually going through the roof. Being diverse is, I think, the only way to have a significant impact with inflation. Always planting, always harvesting, always having something going out and planting something into the soil. I kind of dedicate that award to my dad. He was the person that instilled in me the intestinal fortitude to always keep going, never give up. He was hardly recognized as a farmer, so that award, I would say, is primarily for him. We own a consulting company. It's called the Connect Group, LLC. I'm also the director of Nature for Justice, which is a farmer inclusion program. I public speak. We do a lot of conferences. I call this the second half of my career is primarily focused to public service, whether that be consultation for agriculture, farming full-time, spending time with my family, and finding ways to be philanthropic to the community. It has to be in you to be a farmer, because a lot of people will give up, and especially in a year like we had this year. But what I say all the time is farmers are resilient. We feed the world, we clothe the world. I love being a farmer here. It's a heck of a way to end my career, giving back and putting in my time on the land. Same thing my dad did and his father did also. So just following in those steps.
And our thanks to the North Carolina Farm Bureau for sharing that story with us. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.